Hello and welcome to episode 221 of the Crate and Crowbar. My name is Chris Thurston, and tonight, joining me on the 3rd of January 2018 are Tom Senior.
Hello.
And Tom Francis.
Hello.
Hello and welcome to 2018.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yeah. Not a Happy New Year for you, Tom Francis?
No, it is. I was laughing at the tone in which we were saying it.
Okay. Yeah, well, Senior and I already did a New Year intro to Miniatures Monthly, so we're kind of we were faking this one. You couldn't tell. But that was like hearts weren't entirely in that.
It wasn't authentic.
No. Nonetheless, the number of the year it is has changed. And that is literally all the news. Because everyone's on holiday. It's Christmas and New Year. People are crawling back into work and starting to think about maybe sort of answering their emails a bit. So there's really no computer video game news to talk about. I don't think, except for when you make the news yourself. So the, IGF award, shortlist has been announced, and we'll skip to the point, which is that among the list of nominees for the grand prize is Heat Signature.
It is.
Congratulations, Tom.
Shockingly, thank you.
Hey! Hey!
That was more
That's what a real one sounds.
Yeah.
I'm still buzzing a bit.
Yeah, it's a good feeling.
It's awesome.
It was a big surprise. I was kind of like at best hoping for maybe like some mention in the design category. And so I was scrolling down to that. And as I was scrolling down, like, wait, what the fuck? That's, we're in the main category.
That's the game you done.
Yep.
Game you done good. Well done.
Thanks. We are definitely not going to win that category. Even more so than Gunpoint was up for design when it came out, and I knew I wasn't going to win that because it was up against Spelunky. And when you're up for grand prize, you look at the other candidates there, you're like, okay.
Well, let's take a look.
Is in there.
Let's take a partisan look.
It's good though. I think that's the best situation because you're not worried about it. Like, you can go to the ceremony and just completely chill out because you know the result. Well, you don't know the result exactly, but you're not going to win.
Well, also, the other grand prize nominees, just because we might as well talk about it. This is the closest thing we've got to news. So, the grand prize nominees are, Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. So, QWOP, vertical QWOP. Night in the Woods, West of Loathing. I'm very happy to see there, but also
nice.
screw those guys.
That's a cool.
I got a text from Zach saying, congratulations, we're now enemies.
Into the Breach.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Heat Signature. And Baba Is You.
Yeah, I'm very happy about lots of those because Into the Breach obviously deserves it. This is West Loathing, and Baba Is You, I haven't played it yet, but I'm just happy that is good. Like, I believe Alan Hazelman said it's awesome, and I believe
Which
him.
one is Baba Is You, actually?
So this is the one where it's like a top-down, very simple art style, and you are moving around in a grid-based fashion, and you can push things around, and some of the things you can push around are words, and so it can say like just lying around the level will be the words Baba Is You and rock is push, and there's a rock somewhere, and you can push it. And then if you push the rock into where the word Baba currently is, it says rock is you, and then you're controlling the rock.
Damn.
And if you put anything in front of like is push, you can push it. And so all the rules of the game are like written on, well, not all the rules, but the key rules to that level are written into the level itself, and you can push them around and switch in different words and different items into the sentence. Yeah, it's an amazing idea. And it like, you get it so fast when you watch the trailer. If that didn't make any sense to you from me describing it, you can just watch this trailer and you'll just be like, oh shit.
Are those words in there?
Oh, it's shit.
And it's interesting. So in the honorable mentions are Tacoma, Rainworld, Dream Daddy, Cosmic Top Secret, Hollow Knight, Cuphead, and Everything's Gonna Be Okay. But it's sort of, I was thinking about, just looking at them now, I was thinking about, because obviously I'd like you to win. I was thinking about, but as with any award, shortlist, it comes down to, not sort of arbitrary differences of what people value, but games are so different to one another that you have to pick something that's more important than another thing, right? Like if we're talking about probably pure tight systems design, then Into the Breach is going to be hard to beat, and probably pretty hard to beat if you are Night in the Woods, because your goals are completely different, right?
Yeah.
And your style and attitude and everything is totally different. But one thing that amused me looking at this is that actually, obviously in a year of good narrative-driven and writing-driven indie games, the two games in this shortlist that are very kind of writing and storytelling heavy are Night in the Woods and West of Loathing, which are not the two games I would expect to be going up against each other in that particular regard.
Yeah, it's kind of good because they're almost opposite ends of the narrative spectrum in some ways. Night in the Woods has that, yeah, like you said, it's all about like what does the jury value, and because it's decided, the IGF, if you don't know, is has a judging phase where there are thousands of people judging, including like most games press and loads of game developers, and then the actual judging doesn't determine anything except to highlight games to the jury, and then the jury are just 5 people for each category or something like that. And they determine both the finalists and the winners. And they will have already determined that, which is a weird thing. And so, yeah, it's about what those 5 people care about. The overall one, I think, is voted for by all the juries. So all the juries for each category also vote for their overall winner.
Damn.
And it can be something that's not nominated in their category or anything. It's just whatever they like. And so, yeah, it's about what that group of people values. And, yeah, Night in the Woods feels like it's sort of quite well-rounded in the sense that it's like beautiful and it's kind of about feelings. And it's got that kind of like indie, it feels like it's well-tailored to indie, enthusiasts' interests.
Yeah, it's an odd one, that one, because, so you see like Hollow Knight in the nominations, and Hollow Knight, like Night in the Woods, is a very well executed but ultimately quite derivative take on a pre-existing genre. So Hollow Knight is just a beautiful Metroidvania with its own ideas and its own vibe unto it, like that feels very unique to it. And I feel like Night in the Woods is an equivalent, whereas like I feel like Tacoma deserves to almost be in there and mix it up with as the narrative game, really. I feel like that's more experimental and interesting as an interactive concept.
Tacoma is nominated in the narrative category. But yeah, I think it's a more inventive narrative game than some of the others.
Yeah, I mean, so, we should mention that you are an honourable mention in excellence in design. So congratulations for that as well.
Thanks.
But yeah, it's an interesting set, and it'll be fun to see. When is GDC this year? It's March, right?
Yeah, middle of March. What are the other design nominees?
Other design nominees
Into the Breach is in there.
Are Into the Breach, Shenzhen IO, Wilmot's Warehouse, Baba Is You, Urnog Unlimited, and Getting Over It.
I think Urnog Unlimited is by Niflas.
It is.
And the Warehouse game is one we talked about on the Fantastic Arcade pod. I haven't played it, but I think Zach and Kevin had, or had seen it at least. Yeah, some good stuff there.
Just a lot of good stuff. That's nice. Isn't that nice? Good. Well done, Tom.
Thanks.
Is there anything else that we could go through the rest of the nominees if we want to, but obviously there's a lot of categories, so.
What is nominated in narrative?
Okay, yeah, we'll go to narrative. Tacoma, Attentat 1942, Where the Water Tastes Like Wine, Night in the Woods, Butterfly Soup, and Tooth and Tail.
Oh yeah, that's cool. RTS nominated in the narrative category.
Yeah,
That is interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, those guys are good at IGF. Because Monaco won 5 weeks after they started working on it. Yeah, and it's interesting, it's kind of fun that, Where the Water Tastes Like Wine is up against Tacoma because they're both former Gone Home devs.
Yeah. And, as you were saying before we started recording, Fulbright versus Jim Bulb.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's, there's a section of indie storytelling that will always be people who worked on BioShock in some capacity. Going out into the ether to make games where you pick up stuff and rotate it.
I think Gone Home, Gunpoint, and FTL were all in the IGF for the first time together the year they came out. And now Into the Breach, Tacoma, and Heat Signature are all in the IGF the same year as well.
Do you reckon you get the different indie devs, interval waves? So you're clearly on the 3.5 year interval with Fulbright and those guys. And then, obviously all of the 7 to 10 year devs on their own, much longer orbit. It's like planets.
Yeah, Spy Party 2 will come out at the same time as Owlboy 2.
Wasn't there something announced for Spy Party? Isn't that actual news? Or am I?
It's 10 years old now.
Oh, that was
Chris Ecker figured out that his first like entry in his sort of dev log for it was 10 years.
That's the opposite of it coming out.
Yeah, it is. It has a Steam page now, and it's coming soon on Steam. So I am reasonably sure it'll enter Steam early access this year, and who knows how long after that it'll actually be done. But it's, I mean, unlike The Witness and Albi and all these other super long projects, it's there's less kind of like. Oh fuck, might it bomb completely, and, you know, terrible risk accumulating because he's selling it. Like Chris is selling it on his website. You can buy it right now and you can play it right now, and people do, and enough people buy it that he's kind of getting by, like, and he does need to sell, I think, a bit more when it goes to Steam, but he's not like just, winding up some enormous, like, debt that is all going to come crashing down on him if, you know, on launch day when, it either dies or succeeds. He's already had a whole load of success, and, there's, the money from that. And then there's also the, like, pretty good reason to believe that it will sell well, since it's already sold well without Steam.
Long-running projects, Iconoclasts is coming out this year.
Oh yeah.
I never thought that would be released. I mean, I've been following guy on Twitter. He's a brilliant animator and a superb pixel artist, and I've been following his kind of little experiments and roughs on Twitter. And I just thought, this is never going to come out. It's too ambitious for one person to do alone, but it's actually going to happen.
Quite early, isn't it? Is it February or March?
Yeah, I think it's like in the next few months. And it's been around. I mean, I remember we were previewing on PC Gamer like 5 years ago, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think I remember writing like a Games of 2012 preview feature for January issue of PC Gamer.
So this is coming out.
Yep.
One to watch, everyone. For years and years.
Yeah.
That's nice, though.
Yeah, it is nice. What have you been playing, Tom?
I
don't think I have to just throw that to the room.
I've been playing, since you looked at me, I'll answer. What the fuck is it called? Recursed. Which is a side-on platformer. The name is a pun on, like, recursion and being cursed. And as a side-on platformer, it has a lot in common, I would say, with Braid, in that it is an exploration of an interesting, clever mechanic. And in order to fully explore that mechanic, they make everything else incredibly simple. So you're just walking around platforms, jumping on crates, picking up keys to open locks and go through portals. And the main mechanic is these chests that, instead of containing like loot, you just jump into them, and then inside them is another level. And you can do things like go into that level, pick up a box, and then go back out of that level, and you'll jump out of that chest with that box. And so the most simple puzzle is go into this level, get a box, come back out with it, and now you need that box to step up to the exit. But it has a whole load of more interesting things going on. So one of the levels I just played, it is incredibly difficult to describe because what's going on is like, even as you're playing it, you don't entirely grasp what you just did until a little while later, and you're like, oh, I see. So one of the levels I just played, you are, it can do things like, you start in level A, there's a chest there. If you jump into the chest, you go into level B. Within level B, there is a chest that if you jump into it, takes you to level A. And these are like, it's not the exact same place you came from. It's another copy of that level. Right. So every time you come out of a level, the level you just left resets. But you can go into a level. If you go from A into B and you take a crate back out, you can then go back into B again, pick up another crate. Even if there's only one crate in level B, you can pick it up again because B will have reset because you left it. And then when you go back into A, the old crate will still be there. And so you can add another crate to that stack. So even if there's only one crate in level B, you can create an infinite number of crates by just going into there, picking them out, because A won't reset because you've never gone to like a higher level than A. Right. A is like the top level. Right. And everything within A won't reset A. And so, yeah, I've just done one where like you go into A leads to B and B leads to A, but there's also like a higher level world of C. And it's complicated further by the fact that if you go into A, and then there's this crate that leads to B, this chest that leads to B, you can pick up that chest and take it out. Oh my God. So
it's that episode of Futurama.
Instead of, yeah, very much so. It's exactly like that. And so instead of, A leading to B, now A leads to another copy of A. And I've just got to a chapter where like there's water in these levels. And so like, instead of having to jump up to an area, you can swim up there. And if you take a chest that contains a level that doesn't have any water in it, and you throw that chest in the water, and then you go into it, that level is now flooded. So now you can swim around inside that level.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm never going to be able to play that game, Tom, but it sounds so good.
It does a good job of leading you in gently, actually. There's a whole bunch of levels where it's just really trivial how it works. And a lot of the cleverness comes from, like the reason you need a crate to get to a certain place is not just because it's a high jump, it's because, when you are carrying something, you can't jump as high as when you're not carrying anything. And so it's all about like, if I put this down here and then I jump up just high enough to like throw this crate over there, then I can step on this other crate and jump up to this location. So it teaches all that stuff first. And so that's really easy. And then the first time it introduces the level switching stuff, it's really, really basic. And you go through like a whole world of levels where it's just really, really basic. And then, then you hit one where the box within the level contains another copy of the same level. And, that's when it starts fucking with your head. And it's also possible to kind of muddle through a level without totally understanding it. You have to sort of get something about it, but you can definitely not entirely grasp what's going on. Like this A level for a long time, it's not that I didn't know it was that the second copy of A was the same as the first copy. It just didn't register in my brain. It was like, I went through the chest, I arrived in a level which had a key in it and the exit, but I couldn't reach the exit because I didn't have a crate. So I picked up the key and I left again, and then I used the key in this other world. And technically I'd been to that level before, but I didn't immediately register that, oh, this is the same level as the other one. And I could solve the puzzle that way. I didn't need to sort of totally grasp, oh, this is the really clever thing it's doing. But then there are also these rings lying around.
Oh God.
And I'm pretty sure you're supposed to take them to the exit. I didn't get any acknowledgement for doing that when I did do it. And the first few levels where there are rings, it seems completely impossible to take them to the exit. But I didn't know how the game worked fully at that point. So maybe if I go back, I'll realize how to do that.
It's a bit like a Braid Star thing, perhaps, like additional challenge.
Yeah. And there's definitely some levels where like, it's just like, yeah, you've got all the way basically to the exit, and the only thing left is now a jump to get to the exit. And the jump is just the right height that you can do it if you're not carrying anything. But there's a ring on the floor. And if you're carrying the ring, you can't make that jump. But the exit is actually through a chest. And so, yeah, you can't pick up the ring and jump up to the chest, but if you put the ring down and then you jump up without the ring, and then instead of going through the chest, you pick up the chest and throw it back down to where the ring is, now you can go down there, pick up the ring and jump in the chest. And now you can take the ring to the exit. And like I say, I did that and nothing happened. And I can't even see, like, on the level select screen, it marks that you've done the level, but there's no, as far as I can tell, I didn't see any, like, extra acknowledgement for having got the ring. But it just feels like, I know video games, I know I'm supposed to do something with this ring, and it feels like, because it's harder to get the ring to the exit, that must be what I'm supposed to do.
Is there any indication of, as to what level of inception you're at when you're actually
no
level?
And like there's one level where it's all copies of the same level.
God.
And yeah, you almost don't need to know to some extent. The only problem I have with it so far is that the button for pick up item, the button for throw item, and the button for use the exit to the level are all the same. And so pick up and drop is not so bad, because if you're holding something, you can't pick anything else up until you drop this thing. But it's very, very common to have items like stacked on top of the exit to the level. And the exit to the level is the one that pulls you back out of the chest that you're in. And as soon as you do that, that level resets. And you can irreversibly lose things that way. So it's really serious decision to leave a level. You're going to lose everything you've left behind. And it's very common for that to lead to just an unrepairable situation. You just cannot complete that level from that point forward. Which is, I don't mind that you can get yourself into stuck situations, but it's annoying that most of the time that's happened to me is just because I was trying to pick something up, but I happened to be near the level exit when I did it, and it's the same button. And I don't see any reason it needs to be the same button. There's two completely different actions. There should be an exit level button, and there should be a pickup button, and they should just be completely different. One kind of nice thing about this stuck system is that it will try and detect when you're stuck. I think it's not 100% reliable, but it'll look for obvious situations where like, oh, you just lost the crate, you just lost the chest that contains the level you need to get to. And the way it tells you this, instead of like forcing you to restart, is a bird appears and just goes, restart.
Oh, that's a great 4:00 on a Friday. To Awesome. That's Recursed.
Yes, Recursed, past tense.
Recursion is a different game, isn't it? It's definitely a game called Recursion. Is there? I don't know.
I feel like I played a game called maybe
Incursion? That's not important now.
There might be a game called Inception.
That's a movie.
Yes. Yeah, maybe it's just called Recursion. But yeah, there's one of those like cooperate or pass self games that's called a word like that.
Yeah. Rad. I've been playing I played a bunch of puzzle games actually, one of which I know we've both played, Tom, so we'll talk about that in a minute, but I've been playing Bridge Simulator Portal.
Oh yeah.
Which...
The new Portal game.
The new Portal game, apparently. Well, so it's, and it's good. It's good because, fundamentally, because Bridge Simulator was already pretty good. Solve a problem by building a bridge and pay attention to actual physics and try and learn how actual bridges work and lay down cabling and rails and metal parts and roads and things to make little buggies go from entrances to exits is the game. And it's good because, fundamentally, Portal is just a set of, mechanics, ideas that translate basically to any physics-based puzzle. The two main Portal games are about flinging yourself through portals and sometimes objects and stuff. And there's basically no reason you can't apply all of the same ideas from portals to momentum carrying over to, fluid that bounces you or speeds you up to little cars. So it's sort of if you hear the name and you're familiar with both of those games, it is the exact game you are imagining when you imagine someone combining those two things. Apart from, I suppose the only thing that's un-Portal-like about it is that the portal locations are fixed. They're a fixed part of every level, and there can be a lot more portals in a level than can ever exist at the same time in traditional Portal. But fundamentally in how they work, it's the same thing. And it's presented in the style of those Aperture Science kind of orientation video things with the little stick men, which they also used for the lab, the VR thing. And it's, the levels are introduced by GLaDOS, and I think Ellen McLean is doing the voice again. It's not like a lot of latter Portal themed stuff. It isn't as sharp or as funny as the Portal games. It's the same humor in function, in terms of like highly irresponsible science people, but it's not got the, it's not like as kind of fresh feeling or I think as high a standard as Portal was. It's mostly like riffs on the same themes. But yeah, it's been a kind of just a fun thing to kind of, work through. So the way it works is you basically have an entrance and an exit, and all you have to do to pass any level is get one car across. And because you're building bridges, your solutions are often like extremely wonky and analog. Like the challenge comes from not only the layout of the level and where the threats are and things, but also, where the attachment points are for bridges, because that affects where anything you build can start. So often you're faced with the challenge of like, dealing with the fact that you can only really attach one bridge in one place, or, and sometimes you got to get, sort of navigate kind of an impossible, jump while only being allowed to build a bridge in one particular corner of it, and that's where portals come in, believe it or not. And there are cool things like, sort of buttons that change things about the level, like in Portal, and turrets, like in Portal, that sort of, I don't think Bridge Simulator has anything like Portal, like turrets previously, which are a kind of nice thing to have to build a route that will take at least one of the cars that you send into the turrets from behind to destroy them. And that's pretty cool. And then once you've solved it, you get the convoy button, which you click to just send the maximum amount. Every level has like a minimum one, maximum anywhere between 3 and 6 cars sort of loaded up in a pipe. They arrive in a little pipe. And if you want to kind of get the best result for the level, then that means building something that can withstand the full convoy, because it measures kind of strain and stress on the bridges in a particular way, and things bounce and kind of buckle as weight is applied to them. So that means that if you've got a bridge that is pretty bouncy, due to whatever constraint of the level, then maybe the first car to go over it is fine, but the second one is not slightly off course, and that means that building something, that's the equivalent of going for the 3-star kind of victory is building something that withstands the...
Just physics-based lemmings.
Yes, physicsy car lemmings.
Lemmings.
What's fun?
Good pitch.
What's fun is that it's very clear. One of the nice things in the writing is it's very clear from the writing, and in the way that's presented in the UI and the way, GLaDOS explains what you're doing is, your job is explicitly to get the cars to the exit, not the people. Like the people who are driving and in some cases riding on the cars, because they're like little orange buggies, like they're like little forklifts or something. But there'll often be like people sat at the front and stuff. And there's nice little incidental animations, like if you, when they get to the exit, the entrance and exit is a pipe. And when they get to the exit, if anyone is still in the car, you'll see them kind of get off and walk down a little set of stairs to like exit the level and by a different way to the car itself. But the important thing is the car and the cargo that's on it. But if you you can easily, and you're almost encouraged to build kind of super efficient little, bridges and tunnels and jumps and things that take the car clean through, but will definitely whack anyone who's sat on top of it. So the level's always full of like people like tumbling and falling off and getting kind of like thrown to their deaths from the car. And then you get maximum points because you're not even measured on that. Like no one ever refers to the fact that it's happening. It's like, and I like that touch that like it's never mentioned. Like it's never mentioned that there are people in these things. And like it's just purely there visually, which is a nice touch and very Portal. But yeah, it's good. Like, I think, for particularly as it was a nice sort of passing time over a kind of holiday game because it's fun to build things and it's fun to solve puzzles and it's nice and analog and often your dumbest solution works just well enough that you get to see the next level and learn nothing at all, which is what I want from a puzzle game.
I watched a video actually by a guy called Summoning Salt, who does YouTube videos about speedrunning communities, and he did one on Portal, I think just recently. And I was kind of curious of what Portal speedruns looked like, and it was actually more interesting to know how the Portal speedrun community like divides up, because the area this video focuses on is on the inbounds runs. So the 3 types of Portal speedruns are inbounds, out of bounds, and no glitches. And so no glitches is literally just play the game as it was intended to be played. You know, you can go as fast as you like by bunny hopping and all this stuff, but you're not allowed to exploit anything that's obviously a bug. And then out of bounds is just no rules whatsoever. Just get through the game as fast as possible, even if it means glitching through the wall and just floating to the exit. And then most of the speedrunning community is in the inbounds section, which means you're allowed to use bugs, but you're not allowed to go outside of the bounds of the level. So you don't go through walls, that kind of stuff. But it is evolved to be so much about the glitches that it seems almost arbitrary to say stay within the bounds, because they do things like, if you cast a portal at just the right angle and step halfway through it and then save your game and then load the game, the camera and the player become disconnected so that I can't remember which way around it is, but I think the player goes through the portal and the camera stays where it is. And so you then have to just like point the camera at random bits of wall and click, because somewhere else in the level, your character is looking at that angle and you want them to cast a portal in this other place and then they'll pop out there. So it's this completely surreal game. But it's, the story of like who has the record and like how they got it and, who beat who is kind of always the same in these, which is like, oh, this guy emerged as the best and he got the world record. But then this guy came out of fucking nowhere and he beat him, and then he beat him 8 more times. And then he reigned for like 5 months. And then this guy came out of nowhere and he beat him, and then he beat him like 8 more times.
Sounds like my understanding of sport, Tom.
Yeah, I guess, without really knowing the specifics of why they, or without watching the whole runs, which is, take a while. It is like, you do still have an admiration for the skill because you know how difficult it was to get the 13.5-minute run. And so when someone beats it with like 13 minutes and 20 seconds, it's like, oh, that's cool. And then when they beat it with like, then they get it down to 13:05. You're like, holy shit. And then someone got 12:30. And then eventually it gets down to like 10 minutes. And then,
jeez.
Speaking of which, Awesome Games Done Quick is either this week or next week.
Oh, really?
It's imminent.
Yeah, it's imminent.
Keep an eye on that. That's always.
Is it next weekend?
I think it's either this or next weekend. I can't remember. But, yeah, that's one to watch if you love speedruns. In fact, even if you don't know anything about speedruns, it's a really good introduction to them because it's got people who are basically, it's a big grand competition and they pick different games, in different shifts and they pick someone really good and they talk about their runs. The best ones talk about their runs as they're performing them and explaining what they're doing and how the tricks work. So it's much more accessible if you're new to this sort of thing than just like randomly wading into a load of like YouTube videos. And it's for a good cause as well. It's really nice.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Good suggestion. So yeah, the other puzzle game I played over the break, which I know you've played as well, Tom F, is Gorogoa.
yeah.
Which we talked about on the podcast about 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's a long development game.
But it's out now. Gorogoa is a beautifully drawn, puzzle game about rearranging. It's kind of hard to explain, but like functionally you have 4 panels and you're watching a sort of a 2D animation, like a sort of looks like an animated panel from a comic book, and you can pull things about that. You can locate that panel in different quadrants, and then I'm floundering trying to fully explain Gorogoa.
So one example is like, if in one of those panels there's you're looking through a window, you might be able to click on the window frame and just pull it off that panel, and put it on a different panel. And now the one you pulled it from, instead of looking through the window, you're actually kind of in the scene.
Yeah, it's a
different
city scene now.
And now when you put the frame on somewhere else, that will also change that scene. And now when you zoom back from that window frame, you're in a different building.
Somewhere else. Yeah. It's sort of like, this sort of, there's a sort of a really detailed logic, and it's a meticulously planned puzzle game because obviously it's all hand-drawn art and kind of, and then there are sort of things that rely on the relation between 2 panels, physically. So, apple hanging from a tree in one panel, bowl in another panel. You can zoom to a point where things match up that you wouldn't think would normally match up, and then the apple can fall from the tree into the bowl. And that's the game. And it's not an especially long game. It took me about 2 hours to finish, start to finish. But I really liked it. I thought, particularly as a kind of a pleasant one-off sort of relaxing experience. It's mostly a game about playing with the stuff that you're shown, before, and as you kind of unpick, reverse engineer the logic of how each scene is constructed and how objects relate to each other and how scenes relate to each other. And, it's about sort of pattern finding and sort of, very abstract logic, but it is fundamentally logical in a way that is really gratifying. But all of that is in service of just delivering the art, basically, which is lovely. And it's got a sort of, there's no writing in it. It's also non-verbal, but it's a sort of like kind of semi-mystical, spiritual mood piece about, an encounter, like a person at multiple points in their life, and their kind of encounter might be, might be metaphorical or hallucinatory, or might be real, with a kind of luminous coddle god beast. Which I like anything with a kind of juxtaposition of kind of realistic or naturalistic life contrasted with the semi-luminous coral god beast. That's just something I learned about myself.
And you got to gather them fruits.
You got to get fruits. You got to get fruits for the bowl for the god beast.
If it's a spoiler, don't say. But was I supposed to know like what I was doing with those fruits? Like my initial, it starts with a scene where you just sort of see this coral god beast, and then the person just sort of, I think he's looking up in a book, and it just has a picture of a bowl of these different coloured fruits next to the god beast. And so then you set out to get those fruits. I wasn't like, my initial thing was like, oh, maybe the coral god beast is a problem and these fruits will solve it somehow.
I'm not sure. Because in the backdrop there, the art really is lovely, and in the backdrop is a sort of, it's never placed anywhere either, like culturally or historically. Like, it's not based on a particular folklore. Gorogoa is the name of the the God Beast. But that is just based on the developers. I think it is just a sort of, a wholesale invention, right? Like obviously it's reminiscent of folklore, but it's not based on something specific. And then this person who you see at different points in his life, obviously goes through periods of like war and rebuilding, and the backdrops and the city backdrops change, and that relates to how you pull panels off things and rearrange them and all the art that's around it. It really is lovely and intricate. But there's no like, there's very little by way of like, strictly kind of literal storytelling to it. It is all kind of like, take out what you want from this kind of little encounter with it. But it's a really nice use of puzzle solving as just an excuse to push and pull at pictures. Yeah.
There's a bit where, without going to specifics, you're just trying to direct someone, and your control over that situation essentially boils down to like tell them to go left, right, or forwards. But the way you choose left, right, or forwards is the most extravagant, lavish, ridiculously intricate thing. Like for, being a sort of mechanically minded designer, I would come at that with like, okay, well, what the player can basically do here is go left, right, or up. So like, make that the fucking cursor keys, or just have 3 buttons on the screen that the player clicks. And this is the absolute opposite end of the scale to that. It's like, dive inside a person's mind and go into their memories and look on their bedroom wall and select a picture of someone who's looking in this direction.
And then transplant it into the speech bubble that represents their inner consciousness. Yeah, it's that. But
it's amazing. I sort of respect it for that.
Yeah, it's not, because it is supposed to be kind of baroque, and kind of like the moment it's like press space to jump, it's lost a lot of its magic.
Yeah, definitely. I got stuck a few times, and every time it was because I didn't realize, I can click on that. And it does have a system for that. Like if you click somewhere you can't, where there isn't anything interactive, it does a little like ping and highlights the interactive areas, which is appreciated. But the times when I got stuck were just like, there'll be like a wheel of all these different things, and you can zoom in on each one, and on most of them you can't do anything, but on one of them you actually can. And so I didn't think to click to ping to see if there was anything interactable there. I just assumed it was like the others and you couldn't. And it turns out you can and you should. And
it also does something which can be, I think this is the puzzle equivalent of the big town problem, which I know we've returned to a lot on recent pods. But like, when games just sort of confront you with too much and you go, actually, nah, rather than getting excited about it. It does a thing where it will give you like a big puzzle made up of small puzzles. And all of the pieces for all of them are kind of all there in front of you. And it's about the jigsaw puzzle of kind of figuring out what is necessary now and what is going to be useful later. But that gives you that initial shock. 'Cause even though it's a very kind of relaxing game, I think in a lot of other ways, it gives you that initial shock of, but what's important right now? Like I've tinkered with this thing and I've figured out this interaction, but it's not important yet. And sometimes that can lead you to feel stuck, even though you've made some progress elsewhere, but you've just not made the right progress yet. The good thing about that is when you find the one thing you were missing, because it's always one interaction you hadn't found. It's always that whenever you can't solve something. When you do find that, things flow really nicely and you get kind of quite elegant sort of, transitions from one puzzle to the next, because you already know probably what the next thing's going to be, because there's that one piece from earlier that you found and didn't do anything with.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just progress by complete accident because you start rotating things around and you're like, oh, that happens, and then you move on. But yeah, it's good.
Seems to be I don't know how it's sold, but it's been well received in terms of like reviews. Being a quite artsy game, I didn't know how the Steam community would like it, but it's overwhelmingly positive on Steam.
It reminds me a bit of Monument Valley. Not because of the exact type of game that it is, although they're both kind of beautiful games about manipulating slightly abstract environments in a sort of, maybe they are quite similar. They look very different, but they have a similar kind of philosophy, I think. But also because it's kind of nice to have a puzzle game that isn't really trying to be hard.
Yeah.
Like, there's benefit to puzzle solving where it doesn't necessarily have to just like, there's no puzzle boss fight in this. It does get more complicated, but it just sort of goes through modes rather than getting like, and now we're really going to fuck you over, right? Because it's not appropriate to the type of game it is. And I think about that a bunch with puzzle design. Like, I quite like puzzles but I don't like getting stuck on things, particularly if what I'm really interested in is the aesthetic of the story or the music or something like that. So it's nice to have a puzzle game that just wants to unfold, basically, like a picture book, and not, you've got a reason to interact with it, but you're unlikely to then have to like alt tab to a walkthrough or something like that, because it's never overwhelming or simply too obtuse to solve.
Yeah.
It's good. Tom S., I appreciate you've had a games light Crimbo.
Yeah, sadly I've been away from my PC for weeks now. So I played like an hour of Mad Max earlier, which is one of the games I picked up in the Steam sale for £5.
Wow.
The idea that you can get a game that looks that pretty and nice and feels so good for £5 is kind of insane, even though the game's been out for probably like a couple of years now. This is made by Avalanche, and it's a much more solid game than anything Avalanche has made before. They're responsible for the Just Cause games, which are always technically stunning, but never felt very exciting to me mechanically in terms of what you just go around and blow stuff up, and the explosions were very nice, but it always felt kind of shonky to me. It always felt kind of weightless, like you're just flying around on this ridiculous physics and shooting, lead bullets at a fuel tank half a mile away, and then it erupts and, does a James Bond explosion, and that's basically like Avalanche games. Mad Max is definitely just a genuine attempt to, frankly, ape a lot of the fashionable things that were in open world games about 4 years ago. So it's been surpassed, especially last year, by stuff like Horizon Zero Dawn, Zelda Breath of the Wild. I think last year, not necessarily on PC, we saw a massive, generational shift in how open world games behave in terms of the interactions in those worlds and how good they feel and how good moving around them feels and how good combat and stuff feels in those games. Mad Max is definitely stuck in the previous era, but nonetheless it still adopts the Arkham combat system. And so often I'd rather that people use the Arkham system than create something new from scratch.
Like Assassin's Creed Origins.
Yeah. And like The Witcher 3, and like The Witcher's never had fun combat for me, and The Witcher 3, it's the weakest aspect of the game for me is the combat in that. Whereas, Shadow of War, I love Shadow of War's combat because they just lifted the Arkham system and it just works. It's because, the things you expect to happen, it's not like analog. It's just certain. So when you see an icon flash over someone's head, you press the button, you get a cool animation, you follow up with a heavy attack, you get a very cool, like Mad Max. In Mad Max, you get like massive right hooks, goes into slow motion, and a big sort of knockout flash happens and they go spinning away from you. And that's just always really satisfying. That's really good. I'd rather something simple like that than, especially if there's not going to be like a fully fleshed out combat system. I'm not expecting a kind of progression of combat mechanics from Mad Max, but it's given me like a little bit of combat gameplay that I find exciting over and over again. Having said that, I am only an hour in and I'm so totally stuck in its kind of story tract. You know how open world games, Assassin's Creed especially, is bad for this. Orange is less so. Just puts you on a path for like 4 or 5 hours. Shadow of War is terrible for this, just railroading you for ages and ages. And at the moment I'm just trying to break out of it, just frantically punch my way out of it. At the moment I'm doing missions for a guy called Chum Bucket or something. I don't even know what his name is. I think it's Chum, or something. Because I went out to get some wire for him and had to beat up some bandits. And then I thought, I'll explore the camp a little bit. So I just went behind a tent and it said, "Warning, go back to Chum." I was like, for fuck's sake. Is it an open world game or is it not an open world game? And I wish that a lot of games, these games have to make their mind up about it. If you're going to have single player missions, they have to, be set within the open world. Like putting just a little, a band around a part of your open world and then setting a single player mission inside it is just so fucking broken now. It's just so bad. I always expect better from open world games now. Like, you just got to use the open world. Segueing, one of the things I have been playing is GTA Online. So I've been doing the new Heist stuff, which is the Doomsday Heist, which was released for free and has received like a remarkable push from Rockstar, actually.
Yeah, I was seeing an advert for that before The Last Jedi.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
Like, holy shit.
I saw the same thing. I've seen loads of telly adverts. Like you, I was watching The Last Jedi and it came on before and it's like, wow, it's free. It's part of the game on GTA Online now. You have to own a type of facility. Part of one of your heist team has to own a bunker in order to initiate it for like 1.6 million in-game bucks. But if you do any of the heists, the other 3 heists that come with the game, you're going to get that easily. Like, it's not it's not a hard amount of money to get. And so far it's been some of the best heist content in the entire game. And the heists are the best part of all of GTA 5, really. Really smart, exciting co-op activities that really make use of the open world in superb ways. There's one we did recently, with PC Gamers, Samuel Roberts and Phil Savage. We got like a heist crew together, and Tom Hatfield as well. And we all got into DeLoreans and had to like pursue separate trucks around the city, and they were roaming across the city. We had to get within range of them and then hack them. And then there'd be another load of trucks, and then we'd have to pursue those. Then suddenly there were boats. And a guy comes on the radio and says, "Oh, actually, if you press this button, your DeLoreans turn into hover cars." So you press the button, and suddenly you sort of gently, with a sort of vroom noise, your car lifts up and your wheels turn, horizontal. And you start floating, and suddenly you're chasing boats across the water in your separate DeLoreans on the separate missions across this open world map. And GTA City is just incredible. And then you come back together and said, okay, we've got one more thing to hack. It's a fucking jumbo jet. So go to this, go to the runway, and you see this enormous jumbo jet just slowly taking off. And they say, okay, actually, if you pull up now while you're at full speed, you're just going to fucking fly. And then you see these wings come out the side of your DeLoreans, and there are 4 of you just tailing a jumbo jet, blowing helicopters out of the sky as they're pursuing you with the homing rockets, and just trying to hack this jumbo jet. It's absolutely spectacular stuff that really is a proper co-op open world experience. It's really exciting and actually works for a change, unlike a lot of GTA Online's content.
I really need to play that.
It's really, really, really strong. It's just all of the infrastructure around the heists and all the infrastructure around GTA Online is so creaky. It's actually getting into the same server together, actually getting into the same game. Expect loads of disconnections. The last time we played, the servers just stopped working, and so we were all thrown out of the game. It takes about, so long just to load it. And GTA Online was released alongside the console version probably like 5 or 6 years ago now. Like it's years ago. And it took them years to add the heists, but nonetheless, it's very, very old infrastructure, and you can really feel it when they're trying to do too much with the kind of network bases they have.
That's that needs to be better. Like, given that because I was hoping that the fact that, they were really rolling out the advertising for this would be an indication that stuff was fixed. You know what I mean? That they're confident in it, but that sucks.
No, it's really, really bad. It's so hard to get in a game, and when you're in a game, it's so hard to stay in it. You get people dropping all the time, and the missions are getting better and better. They're like properly checkpointed now. They're really well designed. There are rumours that suggest that the latest Doomsday heist was actually originally intended to be single player DLC that has been turned into an online heist, which is interesting because there's loads of voice work in it. There are like a bunch of cutscenes. It uses a bunch of locations that people have been speculating about for years, like facilities out there in the wilderness in GTA 5 that never were part of the single player story. Like, and they're in this piece of, free online co-op DLC. So, it's made so much money for them, GTA Online, but I can't wait for Red Dead 2, and surely there'll be an online equivalent there. And the idea of like a version of that, but with cowboys and with proper network infrastructure, perhaps, would be the best fucking thing ever. Like, the best thing.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
It would be incredible.
Actually, I'll tell you what, if there isn't, because I know they put it into GTA quickly, but if Red Dead 2 Online doesn't come with a plunk bag Battlegrounds mode out of the bag, I'd be absolutely gobsmacked.
Absolutely.
Like, I'd be amazed if they weren't already, someone at Rockstar isn't currently scrambling to redesign and was going to be into that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the idea of having like your own saloon or your own kind of gang of, bandits little mini clans that you roll together with, you're rolling out with your horses, across the Wild
they
West.
Don't roll, Tom.
They don't roll.
You've seen a horse.
I have. So this has gone terribly wrong.
Roll out, auto horses.
You've taken a corner too hard and suddenly...
Near thump.
Horse be rolling.
I wouldn't be surprised if that happens somewhere in West of Loathing.
No, totally.
But yeah, it got me excited about future Rockstar stuff, really. Especially because they've pivoted so hard to GTA Online from whatever their single player DLC campaigns were for that game. Like, all the other GTAs have received substantial single player updates except GTA 5. And it feels like all of that energy has been channeled into online.
Which, I imagine people are upset about that, but honestly, online is the best, with all its problems, online is the best thing about GTA 5.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree.
I think, I would like completely support them focusing on that creatively, really, because it felt like a better use of those assets. Like I felt and I said this before, but like GTA 5 single player for me was like, I was just so sick of it. Like I got so sick of Rockstar storytelling, so sick of the types of stories they were interested in telling, so sick of their way of telling them that I just wanted it over. Like, it was like this sort of spectacular, awful, like, if that story had been on a less extravagantly produced game, and less technically well produced, it would be garbage, if you know what I mean. Like, it's that, so in any case, them letting themselves go and letting them doing hover DeLoreans versus hack planes, the game, in multiplayer, I'm perfectly happy with. I'd much rather they do stuff like that, honestly.
Yeah, it really brought back something that I'd missed about GTA, which is that the true sense of silliness, not just characters being silly, not just kind of people saying silly dumb shit or silly puns, like actual silliness in the game that you get to do, jetpacks, flying DeLoreans, submarines, just prattling around together as a group. That is the best thing in GTA is that. Like, I've always had the most fun doing that stuff.
Totally, yeah. Man, I'd like to play it again, actually, but I don't want to contend with the loading and the bugs and everything else.
Still all there, man. Still all there. I know. Real shame.
So, speaking of actually something losing all of its bugs, actually, I take that back. Something, gaining a huge polish patch. I went back to Plunk Bag, because I wrote a review for Eurogamer.
Oh yeah, it's out now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's out now. But actually, I was really struck by how new it feels, which is kind of interesting, particularly because I imagine, obviously, it's the most popular game in the universe, etc., etc. And it's, been an enormous success, but it's still strange to see something emerge from early access into a full game, and that to feel like it actually meant something. Like, there wasn't just a 1.0 day for PUBG. It definitely rolled over into, and this is what we had in mind all along. And it exposes the version people have been playing for the better part of 6 months of last year, as genuinely a early test, kind of rough around the edges version of it. It's still got some issues, and I think the launch version of the game introduced some performance things that certainly affected me. They seem to have been patched pretty quickly. But I've been really enjoying it again. It's still sort of frustrating in some ways, but actually I've gotten back into playing with a big squad, and it's still one of my favorite things to do with four people, specifically 3 or 4 people. And it reliably produces, really fun, silly, kind of tense moments. There's a few things that they have done new that, have struck me with, one, how well implemented they are, but also just, ways they feel like sort of, they illustrate the way that a game like that can go from like, I get why this is so popular, but it's, rough around the edges, to, oh shit, this is actually doing all the things you want it to do. Like, it was that thing when PUBG first came out that, I think Marsh said or something, but it was like, that it was kind of amazing to see a game that felt a bit like DayZ.
Right.
Not be fucking busted. Like, totally fucking busted.
Yeah.
And it was largely busted. Right? You know what I mean? But it's like, you're so used to armor-derived games being like,
broken
broken nonsense.
Yeah.
Whereas this now kind of does work, and they've, overhauled the front end of the game, so it's a lot slicker, the menus are a lot better, that kind of thing. It's still jank, but not as much. But like, the addition of the sort of the vaulting and climbing stuff that they've worked in makes it feel so much better to navigate. So much better. Like, it's kind of revolutionary how different it feels. Because now you can sprint and vault over a waist-high wall. You can climb through windows. You can jump and grab containers, and that changes the way the original map feels a lot, because suddenly things that were just sort of like impassable or a pain in the ass to get around before are now climbing routes and that kind of thing. And it's actually a really nice system. It's a very good tactile climbing system in an FPS, which, to be honest, a lot of FPSs don't have.
Yeah.
The stuff you feel like you should be able to do in an FPS, where like, you think your character should be able to jump and grab a ledge and pull themselves up, but because you can't, because typical FPSs require you to jump your entire body over something before you can get up it, rather than jump high enough to reach it. PUBG doesn't work that way. You can jump high enough to reach it and pull yourself up, which feels really natural. It's one of those things that it's rare that game does something that you want every first-person shooter to steal, but I'd kind of like every first-person shooter to just do that. Because, to treat climbing and clambering more like a,
Yeah, you see,
it's an action game.
You see mantling systems in more and more FPSs. Like even Destiny 2 has it now, like a more subtle version, but a bit like for your hands to reach out and just like haul you up, like for the game to anticipate what you're trying to do. Titanfall was always very good at this as well.
Yeah, like, and it's a lot slower. It's not like it's not intending to turn you into like a speedrunner. A speedrunner, I mean, a free runner. Like, it's not supposed to be parkour, but because it's a game of sort of like a lot of crouching in bushes and things, but it feels right. It's tactile and kind of fun and interesting. Jumping through windows is really good. Changes the drama of doors, which is what Plunkbag devolves into most of the time. You look at a town full of doors. If any of them are open, people have been there. Now you have to look at the glass as well, because people can go through the windows. Some buildings don't have glass. There's a really, I play a lot with my friend Dan, and, when you go through a window, you obviously smash the glass and it makes a sound. And if two of you are exploring different parts of town and kind of, looting it together, it's quite common to hear breaking glass as one of the other of you go through a window, but it's very necessary to communicate that to your friend, because obviously, and so, the first time this happens, one of you does it without thinking about it, and the other one goes, and then someone goes, it's me. That has devolved over the course of hours to every time me or Dan go through a window, we kind of deadpan say, it's me, and then burst through a window, in a sort of bored fashion, which is the best way to go through. If you ever have to leap through a window in real life, just like smash through it and then go, it's me.
Here I am.
But yeah, so that's good. But actually, and the new map's really good. I really like it. It's a desert map, with, cool new locations. It's every time they do a map, they basically redo every asset in the game from scratch. It's all new vehicles. It's all different stuff. It's got a VW van that you can drive around, which is a lot of fun. They've made like driving off road a lot more risky and dangerous. So cars tend to have to stick to the road, and also the map's a lot bigger. So you tend to rely on cars more, and that sort of feels a lot more kind of, elegant in terms of where you can expect players to be moving, which is helpful. But the coolest thing, the thing I wanted to touch on, is the replay system. So in a very basic level, now when you die and the game is, if you've died solo or if your entire team has died, you can click a button to see your death cam. So you see your death from the other perspective, which is obviously really good for catching cheaters and things. Like it did literally, like, I've caught one cheater using it, like where it was without a shadow of a doubt, someone using an aimbot. Like it was really interesting to watch because, me and all three of my friends just got wiped out within a couple of seconds of each other by this one guy on his own with an AK-47, just perfect bursts of like 3-shot burst, 3-shot burst, 3-shot burst, and we all died, and we were all popping up from like different parts of a ridgeline. So there was no human way they'd done it. But what was interesting is going into the death cam and watching the guy's aim snap awkwardly, around the hillside. And initially it looks like he can't be aiming normally because no one snaps from point to point, but it looks like he's struggling to line up the shot he wants. And what it was, watching it back and triangulating it, through the replay system, was his aimbot was snapping onto those of us who hadn't actually finished climbing the hill yet. So it was aiming through the hill at us. And then he was trying to like flick it from target to target until he got the ones he could actually see. But yeah, anyway, so that helps that. But the cool thing is, it saves the last 20 games you play, as full replays.
Oh, wow.
That you can load up and view from start to finish, with a timeline that you can skip along and rewind up and down, scrub up and down, from every player's perspective. You can watch the entire match, and that's really rad. That finishes the loop for Plunkbag for me in a cool way, because that means that, because when you're playing, it's often it's a strange way to spend time. You raid houses for 20 minutes, you have a conversation with your friend, you run into the woods, and then you get killed by someone you never saw, and then you load up to do it again, and you didn't do anything, right? Like, it's a remarkable amount of time you spend not doing anything. But actually, and it doesn't solve that problem completely, but it is really interesting to watch the kind of chaos theory of it kind of, play out all over the map. Like, because when you watch it back, you can see everyone's name tags, you can see everyone's health bars, you can see their perspective and what they were looking at, and you can see, and if you go out onto the map view, you can see where everybody is. And it'll even draw like lines of bullets on the minimap, so you can see who's shooting and in what direction and where the bullet's actually going. And what's really interesting is, because you can't see names at all when you're playing of anyone who isn't on your team, you often don't know how many times you re-encounter the same people. Like, you know, you shoot that one guy near the start of the game and you wing him with a bullet, but then he runs off into the bushes. And then 20 minutes later, you're in this tense standoff with a guy on a hill, and we watched the replay and like, that was the same guy, and he went on a different adventure. And that stuff's really cool. And it's just really fun to, I won one today. I won a solo one today. It's the second solo I've ever won. And it was really fun watching the final stage, because it was a really tense ending. And it was really fun watching like the last 6 people from each of their perspectives, because it is this sort of kind of crazy web of chance and kind of people micro decisions everyone's making. And I think there's a fundamentally random aspect to Battlegrounds.
Yeah.
Like, luck plays a huge factor. Obviously you need to be good at shooting and stuff, but sometimes bullet just spring up into people's brain. You see a lot of kill shots that are just like someone panic sprays, and the game ballistics decided that this time the panic spraying made the bullet go into the guy's head and they won. And that can be satisfying. That can be unsatisfying and frustrating when you only have your perspective on it, and it's just a lot of like, oh, come on moments. But when you can kind of load up the replay and watch that kind of like zoomed out, oh man, that guy looted the guy I killed earlier, and then he ended up here, and then he was hiding in this building for ages, and I didn't know he was here, and that kind of thing. And it's just fun to watch. Basically, it's just a really cool addition, and it's definitely maybe aimed at esports or something, but it doesn't need to be, because it's just, it makes the game feel fuller to me. More like a kind of, less sort of like a big box of stuff that you drop into and try and fight your way back out of, and more like a kind of, sort of designed competitive experience where you kind of see how things fly. It's good, basically.
If you all had sufficiently interesting conversations with everyone you met in Flunklag, like out loud through the voice comms, someone watching the replay could basically play Tacoma. Like, every time they come across an interesting exchange, then rewind and say, oh, what was this guy doing before that conversation?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Like, I mean, obviously, like, I don't think the replays record any of the in-game chat.
Right.
But actually, I was trying to figure out what this reminded me of, and you're right, it does remind me of Tacoma. It is like gun Tacoma, basically. It's like,
gun home.
Yeah. But like, it's the same thing. It's like, there's something basically interesting about understanding your perspective on a scenario, where it's like, and then stopping that moment and following all of the different elements back to where they came from. And you can do that in as much granular detail as you like. Like, oh, that guy showed up in a ghillie suit with the really good sniper rifle. When did he get that? Yeah. And you can follow that journey back to its start.
I guess that'd be good also for learning the map. Like, if you're a new player and you don't know where good items spawn, anyone who kills you with a good item, you can like trace them back and say, where did they get that?
Yeah, although that's random as well. So
yeah, but there's concentrations of good stuff, right?
Yeah, although I mean, some of that is true and some of that is just plunk magic. Like, people kind of get obsessed with the idea that certain things are going to work, and then there's a lot of that. But nonetheless, it's just interesting, particularly because you know that they're all just people, right? Like, it's not AI doing anything. It's all like people making
except that one guy with a bot.
Except the one guy with the bot. But the other side of it that's nice as well is you realize how much other people were panicking. When you play, you feel like the panickiest, most useless person. And it's nice so I won that one earlier, and I got jumped by somebody in the final 4 who fired my experience of this was I heard the shot, took one hit, and then I was like, oh shit, maybe this is it. But something that I've got better at in the game is not panicking and just going like, often if you're getting shot at, best thing to do is not really return fire straight away, particularly if you're not in a good position. It's to like just run around and try and wait for them to run out of bullets, get to cover, something like that. Because if the game is going to decide that one of those random bullets hit you in the head, that's just going to happen. Like, there's actually not loads you can do about it, really. So you're better off waiting a moment, waiting for them to panic, and then shooting them in the head. And this guy unloads like I experienced this as just bullets bouncing everywhere around me. And then I could hear him run out of bullets, and I just turned and killed him. And then from his perspective, you're watching someone have a bad experience, which isn't, obviously someone had the fucking awful experience of climbing over a fence, seeing me, walking a few feet, getting his gun out, and then just firing it into the air. Like, he sort of wanted to try and lead, but didn't, and then just completely fucking misses, and then bottles it, runs, gets clipped on a wall, slightly runs into a wall for a bit, and then I shoot him. And watching it from his perspective or her perspective was funny because it was that reminder that, oh shit, I've totally done that. And everyone playing this is kind of, privy to the same kind of weaknesses and problems. Like, I won that one partly because I caught the last guy lying down drinking a soda to top up his adrenaline bar. And when watching it from his perspective, looking at where he was pointing his camera, he was completely convinced I was somewhere else. Like, he was completely looking the wrong direction. And it's like, that's a freebie. But when you find it, you don't see all the different decisions and things they've heard. And yeah, being able to hear the positional sound from other people's perspectives is cool. Basically, it's a good replay system. And I've possibly wanged on about it too much. But yeah, it's nice to see that game come out and be kind of full featured and finished feeling rather than, because, I mean, to be honest, they made all the money in the universe from the unfinished test version. So, yeah. I would definitely recommend people kind of play it with friends. Because it's actually like the GTA Heist. It's just a really well-structured co-op evening. And it actually works, which is...
That always helps.
Yeah.
Should we do some questions?
Yes.
First questions of the new year.
Wow.
They better be good, listeners.
And so a lot of the first questions we got for the new year were about the new year, and were all the same question, which was, which games are we looking forward to in 2018? I do want to give the honor of asking this question, however, to Adam, because he was the first, who writes, there are lots of games due to release in 2018, but very few of them so far excite me. It's fruity semicolon. Do any of them particularly excite you? ?
Yes. Into the Breach, obviously. And Spelunky 2. I don't think there is an official date for that, but I assume it's this year. All indie games really are like, who the fuck knows, but if it hasn't come out yet, let's assume it's in the next year.
It'd be 1, 3 or 7 years away.
A Spy Party, for all we know, could come out this year.
There's a rumour saying that Death Stranding will come out this year. There's no way it will come out this year. But I'm actually really excited to see what the hell Death Stranding is. I thought the last trailer was really, really horribly good. Genuinely nightmarish, really interesting vision for a kind of a video game hellscape, and quite unusual actually, unlike any other game I've seen really. So yeah, I'm now much more excited about Death Stranding, even though who the hell knows what that game is. I think it's going to be an awesome year for strategy games. Into the Breach is a good one, of course. I don't think that the new Age of Empires will come out this year, but I can't wait to see what Relic are going to do with the Age of Empires license. That was announced late last year.
Yeah, I wanted to mention Total War Saga Throne of Britannia.
That's also really exciting.
Yeah, although, so I will confess to a tiny bit of disappointment, because obviously they haven't shown loads of this yet. So this is the next Total War game, which is part of what is presumably going to be a series of Saga games, but by all accounts they're actually like actual Total War games.
They're full-size Total War games, but they focus on like a historical flashpoint rather than a whole era, so they seem to be a little bit more focused on a particular geographical area and a particular period of time. So yeah, Britannia is a good one.
Dark Ages Britain, basically, and that's great. I'm super into that period.
Yeah,
and
same.
And if this is a way for them to apply some of the structure of Total Warhammer 2, which I really loved, to a traditional historical Total War, then that sounds great. My slight disappointment stems from the announcement trailer and the art that they released on Steam when the game was listed is quite evocative, like sort of Banner Saga-y kind of. There's a lot of Britannia and Vikings going around in pop culture at the moment, but of a theme with that, but nonetheless. And then I think the lead official news story for the game on Steam is like the announcement of Alfred the Great as one of the lead characters. And the character art is definitely still Total War character art, which I didn't realize until I'd seen the disconnect between those two things, that I really want like a more stylish Total War game. I thought Shogun 2 got close to that.
Right, yes.
Right, but you know what I mean?
Like, yes, yeah.
Not to say that obviously the Warhammer games are pretty good looking when they want to be as well, but they are someone else's art style. I would love to see something like Dark Ages Europe rendered kind of really evocatively.
Yeah, I'd love to see as well, focusing on fewer playable factions, but that are meaningfully different. That's the thing that the Total War Warhammer games do so well, that I often find that the historical games struggle with a little bit. Not that there isn't variety in the historical games. There's huge variety in, like, Rome 2. If you play as Assassins, you're getting a completely different game to Rome. It's just there is too many factions, and it's very hard to wade through them to find the one. I'd rather have fewer factions that are meaningfully different and exciting.
Yeah, so that sounds fun.
That's exciting.
That was on the list of interesting, there is a lot of, potentially good strategy stuff. I really wanted to highlight Battletech.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really looking forward to Battletech. Did I talk about Battletech on the podcast?
Yeah. Sounds really good.
Cause I played that a couple of months ago, in an early version, and it was great. It's MechWarrior XCOM, and I'm in basically as soon as you say that.
Yeah,
and then,
definitely.
all the stuff they're doing around it and the way they are sort of rethinking what the stakes need to be in an XCOM style game. I love the idea of an XCOM style game where you're running a mercenary outfit, with, interesting soft fail states. Because it's literally not the end of the world. You are a mercenary fighting other people's wars. So really, the win or lose of it, you might sometimes have a plot reason to care, but like, winning and losing is not as important as how much you get paid and how many your people survive. So it's not worth throwing your people's lives away for a job that isn't worth it. But also the game is designed to recognize partial success of missions for part payment and that kind of thing. So I really love the idea of an XCOM style game that makes you less afraid of the we're pulling out now button.
Less intensely punishing than XCOM 2.
And not just in terms of the blah, 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 the mission, but in an XCOM game, traditionally, you can't really extract from a mission. Technically you can, but that is a catastrophic failure.
Yeah.
It's just marginally less catastrophic than if you lost everybody.
Yeah, there'll be a whole bunch of like campaign penalties for doing that, and it's so bad that you don't really want to do it.
I like the idea that in this you can do that, and that faction will maybe pay you a little bit for what you managed to do, probably not like you anymore, but there are other factions. Go fight for the other side if you want. You know what I mean? That kind of thing I really like.
Yeah.
And I like MechWarrior Universe, and so I'm really excited about that. There's also Frozen Synapse 2 as well, which...
Yeah.
That'd
be interesting.
Look forward to that.
I
don't know. I know that they're loaded in like a big procedural city and all this stuff, and you sort of like, your missions take place in these buildings that you see on the map. But beyond that, like, I don't know much about what they're doing to the tactical game. Like, if that's a case of like, oh, we've got the big new idea that we're going to do to that, or if it's just, we'll do the same.
There's a lot more stuff. I've seen it in a few different iterations. Because the Mode 7 guys have been at both PC Gamer Weekenders that I worked on, and, I think we're on the live stream both times as well, so I saw the game both times, and there's definitely, I don't have all the granular information in my head at the moment, but there's definitely more weapons and more advanced AI and that kind of thing. But it feels like I suspect a kind of, like a logical sequel to the tactical stuff from the first game, plus this open world city strategy layer on top of that.
Yeah. Sounds cool. Looks beautiful.
When the IGF nominees came out, Phil Savage mentioned that he's really looking forward to a game called Wonder Song, or that he really loved. Is it Wonder Song?
I don't know.
Not sure about that one.
I'm going to say it is. He was surprised that didn't get nominated because it was one of his favourites from the thing. So I sort of Googled it to see if I could play it, and I can't because it's not out yet. So I guess it's coming out this year. So that's the thing I'm excited about now.
Age of Empires Definitive Edition is due out this year, I think, which is just obviously a nostalgia fest, but one that I'm happy to wallow in when it comes around. I'm really excited about, I can't remember the name of it because it's a made up word, but it's like a mining drone builder game. Nimbatus, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the best trailers of last year.
Yeah.
But it's a kind of Captain Forever style shipbuilding system. But you build a thing that needs to both fend off drones and also drill through the crust of a planet and fit through a little hole. So it's a very interesting design challenge and a very, I downloaded the demo and played it the other day. And, it's got a very nice, easygoing, sort of slotting blocks onto a a hub building system that's really easy to build and
Cool.
iterate on. And whenever, you've got half a prototype going, you just press a button and you're in like a virtual space, just testing it immediately, just testing if the thrusters work. So that feels like a really nice, quick iteration process. And that's what it needs, I think, to not be frustrating.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful as well. Lovely lasers.
Yeah, that's one of those games where I've been following it for years because the GIFs are so good.
Yeah.
You just see a GIF of that and you're like, oh wow.
Yeah. Lasers everywhere.
Want to give a shout out to Untitled Goose Game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
That looks really funny.
I'm actually more excited about that now that I've played it. Like it's, it has a lot more scope than I realized. Like there's just so many ways to mess with a farmer.
I really, really want to play it on a couch with you guys. I think that would be a hilarious kind of thing to do.
Yeah, I just want to watch Pip play it, really.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good.
Top trolling.
Feels like a very natural fit.
Well, I mean, it's Pip's D&D character, the game. So, also, I wanted to, shout out to, there's a trio of, pirate ship games that I'm interested in.
Oh yeah.
Actually, Quadro.
Loads, aren't there? Yeah.
There's, the 90s, back garden, construction set Quadro of games. So there's Sea of Thieves, which actually which is Rare's co-op sort of lightly competitive pirate adventure game, which looks lovely. And I really want it to work because we were talking about wanting GTA heists in, Cowboys Land, America. But I kind of want it in Pirate Land, I think. I want to go on pirate raids with my friends and sail off again. And also a lot of my most sort of, reliably entertaining multiplayer experiences at the moment are, it's Battlegrounds. So it's sort of just all jumping in together and going off on an adventure in a direction is a format that suits me. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Yeah, that's good. In a similar vein, I'm quite excited about Monster Hunter World, which I played a bit on the 3DS and is a very strange game, especially controls wise. It seems like quite an acquired taste, but could be amazing in co-op. It's fighting giant personable creatures.
What about that indie game where you're a cat?
Oh yeah. The one, the beautiful kind of...
Yeah, the one that just looks ridiculously good.
Yeah.
It just looks like footage of a cat running through, beautiful, neon lit streets.
Untitled cyberpunk cat game.
I have no idea what the game's about. I have no idea what you do in it, but it just looks so fucking good.
Yeah,
you can't help
beautiful, isn't it?
I'm quite interested in Ooblets, actually.
Oh yeah.
Which is
Double Fine's thing.
yeah, by Rebecca Cordingley, and I'm not sure what the name of the other developer is. That is, I think it's kind of like a sort of Pokemon type format where you're sort of you're recruiting these little plant-based dudes and you have them fight for you. But it looks really, really cute. And, all the people in it, are wearing very comfortable clothing and then doing funky dances. That appeals to me.
I want to just return to the subject of boats momentarily.
Oh yes.
Which I can do between games, I guess. To mention, Skull and Bones, which is Ubisoft's, the boats bit from Assassin's Creed 4, but a multiplayer game, The Game.
Really excited about that.
Which I played last year in the Ubisoft Singapore office and really liked. I would nominate that for being the probably doomed off-kilter multiplayer game I'm gonna love in 2018.
This year's For Honor, I guess.
Yeah.
For boats.
Yeah, for boats. For Honor for boats. Yes, it's going to be the Ubisoft, stripped down multiplayer game with a distinctive selling point that probably struggles to find players of the year for me. Unless it does a Rainbow Six, which it could do. But people love the Rainbow Six. They don't necessarily love the Swordsman or the Pirates. But yeah, I really liked when I played it. And, I'd like something like that to succeed. Because it's just nice when there are more competitive multiplayer options than the obvious ones.
Yeah.
Abandoned Ship is an indie.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah.
Game about pirates or sea.
Gary Birchall's, sort of, nautical FTL
style. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Looks lovely water, which you'd expect. But yeah, I've seen that again in a few stages of development because Gary's come to a weekender and yeah, that's looking good.
Yeah.
Looks right this year. We might as well finish the boats off while we're here. I'm looking forward to Pillars of Eternity Deadfire or Dreadfire?
Dreadfire, I think.
Dreadfire. Is it Dreadfire or Deadfire?
I thought it was Dreadfire, but
I've written Deadfire.
It's got boats in it.
Yeah, it's got boats in it. Pirates of Eternity. But this highlights to me the tremendous backlog. It's like, I think I'm getting like a CRPG shame pile.
Yeah, they're so hard to finish, aren't they?
Yeah.
I haven't not finished Pillars. I didn't even get to start Divinity. I hoped to over Christmas. I didn't manage it.
I haven't finished Pillars to the point where I might start it again.
Yeah, same.
Divinity I have stalled with, and I want to replay Tides of Numenera. So
yeah, I can't play Tyranny because I feel like, oh, I wish I was playing Pillars whenever I'm playing Tyranny. So, yeah.
God, they're so good as well.
I know. They're so beautiful now as well.
Why am I unemployed? So also actually, maybe just to put a hat on boats,
Always a priority.
Sunless Skies is out in May.
Oh yeah.
Which I'm looking forward to as well.
Space boats.
Space boats.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that because I love their writing. I love their worlds. And I always keep wanting them to refine the formula of their games. And I hope this is an opportunity for them to kind of, to do that.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I love, Fallen London and Sun of the Sea, although the mechanics of both have never
same.
excited me. So, yes,
definitely.
This is another swing at that, which is, I'm happy to see.
I wonder what Brendan Chung will do next. Probably, well, I have no idea, but I have no reason to expect it to come out next year, but, I'm excited to just see where he goes after Quadrilateral Cowboy.
We should get like a JavaScript or something that just combines like a cool off-kilter mammal with a 60s spy movie trope.
I mean,
and then a South American country.
I played that Flotilla 2 prototype, but I don't actually know if that's his next project or if, and if so, if that's a big project or if it's just a kind of like, oh, it's a little VR demo thing.
I wish that it was easy for people to make Quadrilateral Cowboy levels. Not that he would ever build that functionality, but I'd love that tool set, but with...
No, I think it does have some way of building them, because there's a Steam Workshop support, and I saw a bunch of mission names, and I'm not going to be able to remember them off the top of my head, but they were really good names. They were just like the kind of things you expect Brendan Chung to come up with.
Oh man, maybe I'll play those and write about them for PC Gamer.
I wonder if he...
maybe that's my job tomorrow.
Yeah. It's
I wonder if he
post-Christmas period.
I can't remember. I think I've just released like an editor and stuff. Because sometimes he releases the source code to his games, because the source code to the engine is also public, because it's like Quake 3 or Doom 3.
Thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Also wants to give a little shout out to two different games for people who wish it was 1250 and they were a big person with armor and a sword. Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord,
yes,
which is actually coming out this year.
Yeah, I'm really...
Which I'm actually looking forward to, even though that community has absolutely ruined it for me by ruining 2 consecutive live streams that I...
and the fan base is extraordinarily passionate, and that's a very nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
The original Mountain Blade was so good because it was like a platform for extraordinary mods.
I was like a early, like, alpha payee of Mountain Blade way back when.
And it was always so, like, wonderfully shonky, but actually could generate stories and was such a weird, unusual hybrid of game types. You know, the idea that you could be on horseback one moment, but then wandering around an overworld map, sort of trying to hire bandits and stuff at the next. So, I mean, the new one looks equally kind of, in terms of like moment-to-moment combat and stuff, like swing and hope type, just running past people, holding a mouse button, letting go at the right moment to try and hopefully cleave someone's head off. Maybe that's what things were like back then. But I am looking forward to it. I'm kind of, even looking forward to what the community does with that game as much as the game itself coming out.
Probably freak out, run around in circles and pass out.
Yeah. Once the sugar rush is over, then, we'll see some.
The other one is, Kingdom Come Deliverance.
Oh, yeah.
Which I have played and liked. So I'm looking forward to that. That's a sort of lo-fi, open world RPG in the kind of Skyrim vein, but made with a simulation eye to sword fighting and medieval life to some extent.
Yeah. I really liked the look of all the combat and the world and moving around it. Everything except talking to humans talk to NPCs and all of that stuff seems kind of like...
I think the best way to think about it is as medieval Stalker.
Okay.
Right? You know how Stalker, like...
You made that sound very, very good. I'd love to play that. That's amazing.
That's kind of how it felt. Like, it was on the fringe of that, like, a little bit janky and, like, actually, maybe, so a consequence, so the early build that I played hadn't been through proper localization. It was like English language, but obviously it's, not, being developed by people who are native English speakers. So it had that slight, as Stalker did, that slight sort of off, when I say off language, I don't mean inappropriate language. I mean, nothing, it doesn't feel quite right yet.
I know what you mean, yeah.
And so maybe it will get a polish pass. I almost hope it doesn't, because I think that kind of like slight sort of...
I was that fed into Stalker.
Yeah, it almost helps. I'm looking forward to that. The other one I wanted to mention, although I don't know enough about it to know, but it's on the list, is, Zoe Quinn's Chuck Tingle game is going to come out this year.
Yeah.
Which I really, really, really want to play.
It looks hilarious, doesn't it?
Because I kind of love that Chuck Tingle exists dearly. And I love that he's so excited for this to exist and that someone is making an FMV game.
Yeah, it's like, please visit the Kickstarter page. It's very, very good.
Yeah, so.
Good videos.
I thought of a couple more. What the fuck is the name of that one that's like Museum of...
I've thought of a couple more, he says.
Something technology. The Museum of something technology, and it's the one where like you can sort of place a small object such that it looks like it's a big object leaning against the wall, and then it just becomes a big object.
It's small, far away.
That game. It blows up on Reddit like once a year. And people talk about it as like, oh, this is what Portal 3 should be. I'm pretty sure it's Museum of something technology, Museum of simulation technology. Like, it's a weird name. It doesn't really explain what it's about, but it's, just a bunch of like crazy...
Check the show notes to find out what this is called.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this one.
If you haven't seen the video of it, you definitely should. But you probably have and have just completely forgotten it. Cause it was, quite a big one. But yeah, it's just kind of about changing the scale of things and also about going through portals that then make you giant or tiny, and stuff like that. And I'm very curious about, where the water tastes like wine. Which is one of the nominees in the IGF. And that is a game with 25 writers. Oh, wow. It's a game about stories and about kind of collecting stories.
It's got like a compilation aspect to it. It's not it's not like 25 people wrote it together.
Yeah, so I think each person wrote a story, possibly multiple stories, but there are sort of isolated stories within it. You travel America, talking to people and gathering their stories, but there's also, that doesn't begin to describe, a game, and I think there is more to it than that, and I don't know what it is, and that's kind of why I'm interested to see it. It's just like, how does this hold together? Like, how does you actually play it, and how does it work?
I have more recommendations. I'm really on my phone looking them up. There's some really cool kind of adventure games. So there's war games, hashtag war games even, which is Sambalo's next thing. And it might not be a conventional game at all, but I can't wait to see what Sambalo does next anyway. But there are quite a few interesting storytelling games coming out, which I will talk to you about in a moment.
I mean, Her Story 2 is also a thing that's announced. And maybe if that won't come out next year, if he's also releasing the war games thing.
We've omitted AAA stuff largely, which is no bad thing necessarily. But when I was going through the list, it kind of struck me by like how nothing on the current
Far Cry 5, I guess.
Far Cry 5, yeah. Although I've not really gotten into a Far Cry since 3, to be honest. I know you love them.
I've got into all of them, and I will get into this one, I'm pretty sure. Did you see James Davenport's thing about his dad?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
For listeners who might not be familiar with this, James Davenport did a sort of a jokey post on PC Gamer to say, please put my dad in Far Cry 5 because his, dad, did he own a farm in...
James is from Montana, right?
Yeah. His dad's from Montana, so
and he thinks his dad is like a sort of great example of what people in Montana are like. And, he got to play Far Cry 5 at a preview event, and there is a farm called Davenport Farm, and on that farm, there are no specific references to his dad that he can see, except for a note that is written by the farm owner's son about his love for, is it bulls or sheep?
Whatever he can get his hands on.
I think he's saying how erotic bulls' testicles are. And so James has interpreted this as Ubisoft owning him.
He wrote a post saying, did I just get seriously owned by Ubisoft? And then recorded a video of him slowly exploring this farm, the Davenport farm, where it reveals this hidden bestiality subplot that it may or may not be directed at him.
In the service of learning a story, I've learned that Far Cry 5 involves a sort of side quests about, maybe even main quests, about gathering multiple kinds of bull testicles for the Testicle Festival, which feels like the kind of like Testicle, lazy, surely. Weak ass joke that that Rockstar would do in a funny game, but actually it's a real festival. It does happen in Montana. It really is a Testicle Festival. So I kind of give it a pass for that, but I don't want to do those quests, and I hope they're optional.
So adventure games I was looking for, there's one called A Place for the Unwilling, which is an adventure game set in like a Victorian era city, full of like shrouded in fog and mystery. And there's the idea is you kind of go through the sequence over and over again, but you can talk to anyone, and like there are murders and kind of intrigue set around the town. And there's a performance of the Yellow King on at the theatre.
Oh, cool.
And apparently there's lots of those influences like spread throughout. So
bit of the old Robert Chambers.
Indeed. So there's the art for it is just absolutely gorgeous as well.
That sounds rad.
Yeah.
I really want people to dig into, like, I want games to dig beyond Lovecraft when doing cosmic horror.
The other kind of curiosity is A Way Out, which is a kind of the local co-op take where I think it's like a prison break or something.
It's that one sequence from Uncharted 4, but as a whole game.
Or is it, originally it was, Fahrenheit or Indigo Prophecy, I think it was called, where, No, I think I might be getting mixed up. But there's the opening scene in Fahrenheit, you play as someone who's just committed a crime. You don't know what's happened, and you're
sort of cleaning up after a murder.
Cleaning up after a murder, and then it switches to the cop, and suddenly you're playing as the person investigating your own murder, which is an amazing first scene. This isn't quite like that. It's much more of like a co-op kind of escape game. But it's a novel idea, quite unusual. The third and final one I wanted to mention was No Truce with the Furies. You play a cop. And you could be any sort of cop you like, from
good cop, fascist cop,
ugly cop.
The two types of cop, fascist cop or socialist revolutionary cop, if you like.
Good cop, bad cop. I mean, the other way around.
It's inspired by Kentucky Route Zero and Planescape Torment, and again looks really beautiful. And again, like expect more kind of supernatural undertones. It's really cool, beautiful adventure games coming out in the coming year or two.
Those are really good suggestions.
Nice.
Hopefully that answers your question, what you're looking forward to.
Yeah, there's loads of stuff. I'm really excited about this year.
Yeah, there is loads.
Especially after, I felt like last year was a bit quiet for PC games in particular. PC games got outshone a bit by console counterparts. I think this year will be much more fruitful, especially for smaller indie games. I think it's going to be awesome.
Totally.
What was not to put you on the spot, but did you have a specific pick for your game of the year last year?
Oh yeah, because we got your list. We
had a short list, but we didn't know.
I found it so hard to choose. I found it really hard to choose like anything that really totally captured me, like really inspired me last year. But I think the thing that I most reliably was entertained by it was a toss up between War of the Chosen, the XCOM 2 expansion, and actually Total War Warhammer 2. But the latter mostly because it's like such a big crossover of my interests that I couldn't not like it, even though it's actually like significant design improvements on previous Total Wars. And Total War is a series I've always loved. XCOM 2 War of the Chosen, I think, is I think it actually did dilute the qualities of the original XCOM 2 in some ways, but it introduced such cool toys and such cool new ways to interact with the game. I had such a great time with it. And I think, I can't think of a more inspiring way to revive a series than the XCOM, what Firaxis has done with XCOM. Yeah. I think it's just an absolutely brilliant modernisation of that idea. And that's in an era of lots of brilliant modernisations from Wolfenstein to Doom as well. I think
it's equivalent to what they did with Deus Ex. That's how it feels to me.
Yeah.
And like making good on the promise of this original thing.
Yeah, and they've dropped all the old, just looking at this series, but without the nostalgia, like being, completely happy to drop massive aspects of it to actually make it more focused and bring it to a modern audience. I really respect the discipline and kind of intelligence it takes to do that, for both XCOM and Doom and Wolfenstein. even though I didn't get, like Chris, I didn't really get on with the last year's Wolfenstein at all. Though that wasn't the tone thing at all. It was purely fucking picking up health packs all the time. Every
Yeah. It wasn't fun.
No, it's not fun.
But what would you pick?
You've
had 2 games.
I will go with War of the Chosen.
Cool.
I think. Yeah.
You've chosen War of the Chosen. Good. Our next question comes from Matthew, who writes, you have to pitch a game idea based on the title, but not necessarily the subject or content of the last book you read. What is your game and how does it work?
The last novel I read, and by read I mean listened to as an audiobook, was Two Kinds of Truth, which is a Bosch novel, detective novel. So I think I just want to make my detective game that I keep talking about, where like you interview witnesses and they'll give you their stories, and then from those stories it pieces together like a simulation of what happens, like a sort of crude computer simulation, but all of the information given to you by witness A is color-coded green, and all of the information given to you by witness B is color-coded red, and so on for like, 5 or 6 suspects, and then you get to play all those things together, and you get to see where they diverge, and you get to figure out like, oh, does that diverge because those two people have hazy memories of what happened? Or if we have a conflict, like whose testimony can we take out of this to make it all make sense? I guess it would have to be called like 2 to 6 kinds of truth.
So I spent Christmas reading like chain reading Warhammer novels. So I don't really want to go with the names of any of them because they are fundamentally like video gamey names anyway, being fantasy novels. So I was going to go with the last book I read before that, which was The Heart Goes Last by Margaret Atwood. Which I think would be maybe a turn-based RPG starring body organs, where you have a variable initiative order. However, the slowest organ is the heart. So the heart does always go last, but maybe has, very
high hit points.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also, it's got very high hit points as well. Yeah. I haven't fleshed that out much more than that. Yeah, or maybe it's just the world's most granular JRPG where turn by turn you decide what every organ in each of your characters' bodies is doing that turn.
I think you should beat again. I know you've done that a lot of turns.
And in each case you have to choose what the heart's going to do last. And your options are beat or not beat.
Have you
beat
not
or
beat?
end turn?
Yeah, exactly. Or skip.
Oh shit, I clicked the skip turn button.
Yeah.
I'm currently reading a Warhammer book called Spear of Shadows, which proves Chris's
on
point.
my recommendation, because I finished it on Boxing Day and immediately emailed you to be like, read this.
Yeah, it's great if you like Warhammer. But I like the idea of weaponizing shadows as a game mechanic. So imagine if you're in a room with imagine an isometric game with a low light source with all these long stretching shadows, but you can click on a shadow and get it to assassinate a person while they're not looking.
Or what if
you move the light source around and it's a puzzle game?
What if there's legitimately a game where, or like a multiplayer game, like a kind of a Gang Beasts or a Nidhogg style brawling game where your physical characters don't have weapons, but if you manipulate the environment, you can cast shadows that make it look like you've got a weapon, and whatever your shadow is what your physical hitbox is? That'd be great.
Lots of lovely shadow mechanics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, or using shadows to kind of lock people in place. If you can move shadows around behind people's backs, and it's kind of a nightmarish idea, but there's definitely game mechanics in that.
That was actually a really surprisingly fruitful way of generating game ideas quickly.
Should be a game jam based on that particular subject matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Book jam.
There is one about judging something by its cover. I think maybe it's not books, but it's like old cartridges. You take old cartridge art and without knowing anything about what the game was, just try and make the game of that.
Yeah, that's a cool idea.
Our final question of the evening comes from Zed Fang, who writes, with that vampire game on the horizon, I presume they mean Vampire, the don't nod vampire thing? Can the CNC crew think of any mythological creatures or from folklore that they want to see a game focused around?
I think we all had sort of racked our brains for a moment, and I couldn't think of any interesting creatures. Tom Francis just has those.
Just thought of it. I was like, we looked at this question earlier, and I was thinking, like, I feel like recently I was talking or reading about some traditional folklore thing that I thought was really fun I hadn't heard of before. I've just remembered what it was. It was the, like, 15 rowdy boys of Christmas.
Oh, is that the Icelandic Christmas?
Yeah.
Those are really good.
And they were just like, they each have a food stuff that they love to steal, and there's like a quiz you can take that will determine which of these 15 rowdy boys you are. And I was the bread stealing one. I was like the something
carb
hog
boy.
sniffer or something, and he likes to sniff things to see if they're bread or not, and then if they're bread, he steals them. I don't know what game I'd make of that.
It's clearly a co-op game.
Yeah.
With 15 people. You have to find 15 friends. 15 rowdy boys and girls. Actually, yeah, I think, I'd be into more games based on the kind of weirder, more esoteric folklore. Cause cause actually games have had quite a rich line in the last couple of years. I think folklore has influenced sort of indie game aesthetic in a quite pronounced way. Partly because traditional mythology, like Greco-Roman mythology, it has been aggressively mined out by both pop culture and AAA games more generally. So the kind of creative space to move in was like slightly less well-known folklore. So that's why you got a lot of indie games that got spooky deer in them.
Yeah. Year Walk. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called. Yeah, you're exactly right. And I mean, the Banner Saga to an extent they've taken like Norse stuff sort of, but they've actually turned it into their own thing and extrapolated from that. I really like it when people sort of create their own mythologies, and maybe like, Senua's Sacrifice, the Hellblade, again.
Which is phenomenal, yeah.
Yeah, really cool, beautiful interpretations of sort of Norse, but kind of interpreted, in different ways.
I made this joke in the break when we were talking about this, but you could make Baba Yaga is you. Where you are a woman in a chicken shed. And you can rearrange words to make that not the case.
Oh, I don't want this. Let's sort this out right now.
Let's see. Yeah, no.
I would love more interesting takes on vampires, which literature is fucking full of. Like, you know, you don't have to just go for Anne Rice stuff. But, so I was saying back about what we do in the shadows, which is a really funny film, tongue in cheek. Film about vampires living in the modern world and trying to survive and get by, and that would be that'd be a funny adventure game, wouldn't it?
I didn't realise Ryan Johnson was in that.
Yeah, right.
Is he?
Yeah, he's the human who they have to dinner, right?
Yeah.
Really?
So,
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's a really good film.
That is a really good film. That's the 2017, like, fun sci-fi movie, like, ground zero then, because you've got Taika Waititi and Ryan Johnson in the same film.
Yeah.
In the same scene. Huh. Yeah, I think I just had an idea, which would be, cause I miss asymmetrical monster modes, multiplayer games. I want several versions of this game that I've just invented in my mind. Basically, I want what I would call Transylvanian plunk bag. I want a game where 100 players parachute into a thick Black Forest type spooky environment. Maybe it could be maybe you could have different biomes. One could be like a European, sort of Central European forest. One of them could be a jungle or American urban wasteland, that kind of thing. All of the players are in combat with each other. So all of the players are running around to scrambling for gear and guns and stuff to fight each other. One player is a monster suited to that environment. So like a Jersey Devil or a Sasquatch or Dracula or something, depending on the particular environment. And it's still last person standing, but the last human player standing has to have a plan to deal with Dracula. So there's a sort of open system of whether or not you all gang up and kill Dracula and then settle the rest among yourselves. Because you don't want it to be a one-on-one final showdown with Dracula.
No.
That's
ideally.
That's the folklore game I would like.
This isn't the same, but it's as close as games are going to get at the moment. Hunt Showdown, which is a co-op multiplayer game from Crytek, where I think there are multiple co-op teams in the same environment, and they're tracking down creatures in this kind of open world swampland and hunting down clues. And as soon as they find a clue, they'll fight some sort of hideous boss. And the one they're showing off is a giant spider. And it's the most horrific rendition of a giant spider I've ever seen in a video game. The way it scuttles, the way it goes out, in and out of holes and just kind of runs away from you all the time, then attacks you from behind, is absolutely horrendous. Someone who is not fond of spiders, it's awful, but in a brilliantly designed sort of way. It looks incredible. Obviously, Crytek are responsible for the Cry engine, which you don't see used terribly often these days, but I think the idea of something new and inventive that actually shows off the best of their engine is the best thing that Crytek probably do to revive trust in that. But it genuinely looks like a good, scary, sort of plunk bag-ish type experience. That is also, I should have mentioned it in the games I was excited about this year.
Good. Good. That's all the questions we've got time for this evening. If you'd like to send us a question for a future episode, you can email us at questions@crateandcrowbar.com. You can also tweet us at crateandcrowbar. And yes, Tom, you may have more wine.
I will. I will.
If you'd like more wine, you can just pick up that bottle over there and pour it. There you go. Glug, 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 glug.
Lovely.
Wine.
Thank you so much.
If you'd like to support the Crate and Crowbar, and supporting this main podcast also has the side effect of supporting things like Little Grey Cells, which will be returning soon. Pip's away this week in Atlanta for the Smite World Championships, which is why Little Grey Cells is going to be kind of a week after the rest of the stuff we're doing. If you'd like to support Bloodborne, Miniatures Monthly, other spin-offs and so on, then you can do so by checking out our Patreon at patreon.com/Crate and Crowbar. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/Crate and Crowbar. You can also follow us as individuals. I'm on Twitter at @CThurston. Tom Senior is
at PCT Ludo. That's Ludo.
Tom Francis is
at Pentadact. PENTADACT.
Fabulous.
That
That was good. Well done.
Smooth start to the year.